In the midst of late autumn, when the harvests have reached their close, those who work so hard come together and cheer. Their cry is heard from the farmhouse to farmhouse, and we all know it is her time again. The time of St. Maeve, and the time for feast, drink, and celebration. St. Maeve's feast day, also known as Guldganaught, is the harvest festival of the Dwyman people. Guldganaught is Dwyman for Wheat Cutters' Day. The festival was held at the end of the harvest season and took the form of a vast feast around the time of the autumnal equinox. Though the feast has continued for many centuries, traditions such as the crying of the neck have fallen out of fashion through Duirna, as traction engines and farming equipment have removed the need for scythes and cane hooks. Oh, tell me, young lads and lassies, tell me why you're running so, with the laughter on your trailing winds. Your cheeks are all aglow. You say you're going to the churchyards to feast and laugh and play, and to enjoy the festivities of old St. Maeve's feasting day. Legends and tales tell that St. Maeve was a woman renowned for her humility, who offered her home to the poor and animals. The tale has many tellings, but they all seem to share the same three guests who visit her home. On the first day, as Maeve was boiling carrots, she was visited by a string of horses, whom she offered food and her field for rest. The next day they returned her kindness by tilling out all the stones from her field and left. Later that day, as Maeve was making a pie, she was visited by a flock of birds, to whom she offered her sweets and her trees for rest. The next day the flock returned her kindness by covering her field with seeds. Later that day, as Maeve counted the last of her food, she was visited by a group of transients, whom she offered her home and the last of her food. The group of transients returned her kindness by working the land until it grew the finest wheat in all Duirna. It was from this field that she was able to feed everyone and every creature who visited her home for a full year. This occurred every year until she grew too old to continue the harvest. In her weary age, the very wheat she planted grew so tall that it lifted her to heaven, though in some regions it is claimed she was buried in a field, where she became a large field of corn, wheat, etc. Duirnan farmers have long viewed this tale with great reverence and celebrate her life on the feast day on or near the autumnal equinox. Near the time of the autumnal equinox, farmers would gather into large posses for the annual drawing of the fields. If no drawing is done, the honor of the last field harvested goes to the oldest farmer in the group or town. Once the field has been determined, the farmers harvest each field together, one by one, until they reach the last neck. There the chosen farmer will slash with a scythe or cane hook and perform the crying of the neck. From Brannock all the way to the Storm Coast, farmers participate in Guldganaught to honor St. Maeve's memory. Once the cry has been called, people will gather together with friends, family, and neighbors to cook a great feast. In some cases, the festivities will occur the next day or the next week, depending on the population of the area. It is common courtesy to allow all wanderers and transients into your home, should they knock, and feed them as St. Maeve did. Then they will repay your kindness with money, stories, or even work the next day. In the last few decades, as traction engines and farming equipment have become more widespread, some rural and urban communities forego the crying of the neck and treat the day more as a feasting holiday. In major cities, workers celebrate by holding feasts with their friends and families while giving any leftovers to the neighbors the next day. In more rural communities, the festival is a large public gathering where food is served in a large fellowship meal at a set place. Here, competitions such as sack races, drinking and eating games, and even weddings are commonplace. The crying of the neck is a St. Maeve's Day tradition, often marking the week before the festival is to occur. It is done when the last field in town, village, or hamlet has cut down the last stalks or necks of their autumn harvest. Once done, the harvester will lift up the neck and shout the traditional cry, "St. Maeve! St. Maeve! Looky here! A neck for you and your kin!" To which surrounding farmers will cry in return, "Hurrah for the neck! Hurrah for St. Meve! Hurrah for Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so!